Waterford was a community founded by Quakers in the early 1700s, and this is important for what later became the African American community in Waterford because it was somewhat of a haven for free blacks before the Civil War. So before the Civil War, Waterford had the largest free black population in all of Loudoun County, and even after the Civil War, after emancipation, the community here was much larger than in many of the other cities or towns in Loudoun County. We're very grateful to still have a lot of the buildings and houses that the African American community lived in or worked at. All of that still exists here in Waterford because the village is so well preserved. Today's Second Street Schoolhouse looks the best approximation of what it would look like in 1880. We've made a few modern upgrades like lighting and baseboard heat because it's not safe to use the coal furnace, obviously. But the artwork that we put around the walls, the maps, the McGuffey readers that the children use, everything in that building that's part of the child's experience is something that would have been appropriate for a school day in 1880.
This school served the black population in and around Waterford from 1867-68 until 1957. So for 90 years, this school educated the black population.
It really makes sort of concrete what the African American students' experience was. One thing we talk a lot about is that during the Civil War, it was against the law for slave children to learn to read and write. And so that after Reconstruction, after the slaves received their freedom, an education was a really precious thing. And so any time that they could get time off from their farm chores or their household chores to come to school was a very special day.
Good morning, scholars.
Good morning.
The Second Street School Living History program is a day in the life experience for fourth grade students from Loudoun County and surrounding areas to experience a school day in the year 1880 in our one-room schoolhouse for the black community.
I'm happy to see so many of you were able to come to school today. Let's begin our day by reviewing the facts of our American flag.
The Waterford Foundation provides the Second Street School Living History program to schools in the area at no charge. We've done that since it opened in 1984, and now 35 years later we've seen more than 50,000 students come through the doors.
Now can one of you tell the class what the 13 stripes represent? Oh, Abraham, stand please.
The 13 stripes represent the 13 colonies.
That is correct, of which Virginia was one.
It is pretty unique that the schoolhouse that we use was the schoolhouse for the African American community in Waterford. The identities that the children are taking on are the identities of those from the black community.
The Waterford Foundation provides fourth grade teachers with a little booklet that gives some history of the school, some history of the village, and it gives roles that the children need to study and learn to prepare for this trip.
It makes a great impact for them to know that they are depicting an actual African American child who was a student here in 1880. They are that child for the day. In 1880, the students ranged from 6 to 18 years old, and they come as that child. They're addressed as that child. They have a certain seating arrangement.
Rutherford being
I think what fascinates the kids today is that the teacher has so many different ages of students, from 6 years old all the way up to 18, and she was supposed to teach all day long, differentiating the instruction all day long, and there was only one of her.
The curriculum is as accurate as it can be to what children would have learned in 1880. We use the McGuffey readers, which we know were popular in the 19th century. I want you to do your arithmetic and your multiplication on your slate first. Now the work appearing on the chalkboard here is work that children do at their desk. And some of the work is done with slates and soapstone chalk, which was used in the day. So they do work in their copybooks. Miss Nickens calls small groups of children, and they do work, mostly math and some geography work, in groups of maybe 5, 6, or 7. And the other children are occupied with their seat work during that time. One of our activities is writing their name with a quill pen. We have an old inkwell. We have the quill pens. We tell them today's penmanship day. We want you to write your name with the quill pen and the India ink, and then they get to take that home. And that's an experience most of the children have not had. Are you all right, Francis? Charles, I'm so disappointed. This is very unlike you.
I tell my students different ways that the punishments would have been for the children. We talk about the dunce cap.
Very disappointed. For recess, a very popular activity is the tug of war. Usually it's boys against girls, and there's a lot of hilarity associated with that. We have large hoops and small hoops for the children to play with. We have hopscotch stones. I think that touching the materials here and using our primitive equipment, I think makes a big impact on the children.
I think fourth graders are shocked by how primitive things were in the 1880s, but I think they actually enjoy the time away from the smartphones and the iPads and the Chromebooks and all the other technology that we have.
At the end of our session, we have a little question and answer session. When we're back in the current year, we leave 1880. The questions are amazing that the children will ask. So I know that the children are getting a lot out of it. Depicting an actual child makes such an impact on the children.
It's not often that our children actually get to step back in time and experience history in this way. Even when you go someplace like Williamsburg, you're not actually participating in the day.
The fact that we're able to offer our schoolhouse program in the context of a preserved village really makes a difference, because after the school day, those classes who have time before they have to get back on the bus can walk down the street and see the house where the child they're portraying lived in, or the house where one of them worked perhaps, or things like that. Those houses are still here, those shops are still here, and the children can see those.
We have so much history around us about the Civil War, but we don't have a lot about Reconstruction and when things start getting better for African American people in the state. And so I think being able to come to the Second Street School is just an invaluable experience for fourth grade students.
I think programs like ours are really important for children of today because they have to understand where we've come from as Americans. They need to know, what types of communities they came from. They need to know what times were like in the past, because we're here where we are today because of where we were in the past. And experiencing a day like this for a child of today really puts it all in context and allows them to understand today's world.
And we have children that have attended the program in the past that will come back, or they'll tell us they even remember who they were. And many children have said this was their favorite field trip of all time.